Today, we're joined by the extraordinary Thana Alexa, a Grammy-nominated vocalist, composer, arranger, and producer whose music defies boundaries. Known for her innovative approach, Thana seamlessly blends jazz with contemporary soul and world influences, using her voice as both a lyrical and experimental instrument. Her two-time Grammy-nominated album, Ona, is a powerful statement on womanhood, inspired by the immigrant women in her family and the broader experiences of women worldwide. Beyond her solo work, she co-leads the genre-blending trio SONICA, and has created projects like Founding Mothers of Jazz to honor pioneering women in the genre. A force in the community, she also co-founded Live from Our Living Rooms, the first virtual jazz festival during the pandemic. She also serves as the co-founder and artistic director of the Ponta Lopud Jazz Festival. So, Thana, thanks for taking the time today. We got the pronunciation, everything right? We're good?
You got it. It was great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Thana, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was, as an instrumentalist, I'm totally aware of this is a instrumentalist in jazz. There's way more instrumentalists than there are vocalists. And for you, the question I'm asking, is there pressure, like you're almost categorized you're a vocalist, so you can only do X, Y, and Z? Like, are there certain stereotypes you think, there are certain things you have to kind of push back against to do the things you want to do creatively as a vocalist?
I don't think anything pushes me back anymore. When I was younger, I definitely felt that there was this divide between instrumentalist and singer, and even the vocabulary that would be used would be singer and musician. There was a distinction between the two. And so when I was in jazz school, when I was at the New School, I really felt that there was this divide between vocalists and the rest of the musicians who were coming up at that time. And I also noticed that because the voice is such a unique instrument, because it is the only instrument in the whole entire world that you can't see, it's basically, it's an imaginary instrument. It's like love. Prove it to me that it exists. I feel it and I know it's there, and I have to learn how to visualize my instrument, but I learn in a completely different way than instrumentalists. And so I also perform in a completely different way than instrumentalists. And my instrument is a part of my body. It's a part of my being. And so being able to learn a genre like jazz and to be able to express myself and learn the vocabulary and speak relatively fluently in that language, I had to learn in a very different way than, let's say, a saxophonist would, or a piano player would, or even a drummer would. But so I think that when I started in jazz school, I noticed this divide, and I also noticed that I would be, at the top of the tune singing ahead, and then I would step off to the side and all the actual music would happen. All the jazz would happen in the improvisation. And then I would come back and I would sing the head out, and then the tune would be over. And I felt like I missed the party. I missed out. And so jazz is in the improvisation. It's in the freedom that you can find within the music. And so I really pushed myself as a singer to put myself into uncomfortable situations where I would get my butt kicked. And
what were some of those situations? Like, what was going outside of your comfort zone and saying, I know that if I go into this situation, I'm gonna, it's gonna be hard, but I'm gonna learn from it. What were some of those things?
I mean, it started at school. I was one of the first vocalists to try out for non-vocal ensembles. So, once I passed a certain level of, I can't remember what it was called at the New School. It was like, if you passed a certain level of whatever it was, then you were able to apply or audition for certain ensembles. And I remember I walked into Reggie Workman's Standards Ensemble, and there had never really been a singer in there. And so they told me I was in the wrong room. And I said, no, I just really want to try out, and I really want to audition. And then Reggie, who was one of my most favorite teachers from the New School, he gave me a chance and he let me audition, and I got in, and I spent 2 amazing semesters in his Standards Ensemble. But it was always about, first of all, putting myself in uncomfortable situations, like coming into a room where a vocalist had never auditioned before, and being in an ensemble where that the instrumentalists were already feeling like, ugh, God.
Well, did they let other vocalists try out for his class? Like, you were the first?
Oh, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. And it went into other ensembles too. I think I was also the first vocalist to ever ask to go. The new school had I wouldn't even really call it an exchange, but it was, they would take a new school ensemble and bring them to the Bern Jazz Festival in Switzerland. And the new school ensemble would play at a club while the Bern Jazz Festival was happening. And so I was the first vocalist to ask to go, for example. And so they put me with a trio and we went over to Switzerland for a week, and it was like my first little tour, so to speak. But yeah, so those were really, really great experiences. But also in the midst of those experiences, namely the one with Reggie Workman, I got through the door, I auditioned, I got into the ensemble, and then we started rehearsing. We started playing music. We started bringing in original compositions. We started playing known standards and arrangements of those standards. And then we were also obviously improvising. And I remember I took a solo. I don't even remember what tune it was that we were playing. And I mean, so raw, it was not good at all.
Mhm.
And Reggie was really leaning in to all the other instrumentalists and really like handing it to them and making them feel kind of, like you got to work on your shit. And I got, great job, Tana. You did a great job, good effort, and then I actually talked to him after class and I said, Reggie, man, I really appreciate that you're being so positive, but I need you to lean into me like you're leaning into everybody else, or else I'm not going to learn. I need some structural criticism from you. And once I gave him the permission, then he gave me structural criticism and he told me, what I needed to improve on with my motivic development and how I could be listening better to the ensemble and things like that. So it was about getting myself into the door, but also pushing myself to want to be schooled.
Well, yeah, it's sort of an unwritten rule in the jazz world. This is just one of the parts about it, that it's either you're going to completely lay into the person and, there's a lot of harsh, things that can be said, or the other approach, which is just like, oh, sounds great, which is one of the rules that I think needs to be changed. And it's just like, if you just sit and talk to the person one-on-one and not embarrass them and just be like, hey, listen, like, I just want to help you out. And I, and don't take this the wrong way. And you have a lot, if it was just more said, I guess, from an empathetic approach and honesty where you don't have to humiliate someone, I think this is like one of the things I need to be changed. So I think what he did with you, but you asked him for it at the same time. So in a sense, that's coming from you too. So I think it's great. Right.
It's different. Also the context is different. If somebody comes up to me in a show after a show and says, I really like what you did here. I didn't like what you did there. I'm like,
oh,
I
no.
didn't ask you. All right. But in school, I want to learn. And also if I ask for somebody's opinion, I want them to give it to me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm opening that door. I'm giving you the permission to give me your honest opinion.
Has that happened to you though, where someone actually came up to you after a show and said that? Like, or
I mean, you always get I can think of a few, like, I don't know.
I'll tell. Well, no, I appreciate
European
you.
gigs, like, I really liked the first songs you played, but the third one is not good for your voice.
Oh my God.
Something like that.
Yeah, I had a gig one time and a guy came up to me. He basically to just criticize me on my break. And I was like, is this what you do? You just go hear young musicians and bother them on their break? And he could his jaw dropped. Like he couldn't believe I said it. It was so funny.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Once we did a gig. I sang for a long time in Antonio Sanchez and Migration, together with Antonio Sanchez, with John Escreet, with Seamus Blake and Matt Brewer. And we did a run at Dizzy's, and we were playing a piece that Antonio wrote called the Meridian Suite, which was a 1 hour and 20-minute suite with 5 movements, and we would play it from beginning to end without stopping. So it wasn't like we were playing tunes, you clap, start a new tune. It was just one long suite.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bit, for Dizzy's club in New York, it was a little different from what was usually in their programming, especially having a singer on the stage. I wasn't singing any lyrics. I was basically part of the horn section. And at the very end of I think it was the end of the first movement, which is like, we play and it's super epic and it goes up, 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 up. and then we break, and then it comes down, and people do clap, but it's, the suite continues on, the music doesn't stop. But at the end of the first movement, somebody from the audience walked up to the side of the piano and put a note on the piano. And of course, John Escrit was playing, and he couldn't look at the note until like 30 minutes later, when Seamus Blake had this saxophone cadenza. And it was the only time when everybody else got to basically rest in the whole suite, when Seamus did this cadenza. And John Escrit opened the thing, and it says, "Do you have any Gershwin in your repertoire?"
No way. Was
So,
this like a random person in the audience, or was this like someone in the Yeah, I'm gonna
I
imagine
know.
so.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't know their place when it comes to those situations like that, unfortunately. But
It's also people, it's also when you go expecting something, and you don't get what you expect, and I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it was a little out for somebody to do that, but at least they wrote it in a note and didn't try to talk to the
well,
piano player,
I love hearing stories like this, because you're talking about some of the most amazing musicians in the world who even have to deal with these things on the
I
bandstand,
think
someone putting
everybody
a
has
note on
to
the
deal with
stage.
that
Because
kind
like
of stuff.
there's like, people who are younger who people bother them and stuff. And but it's like, if you're telling me that this happened to those musicians, it's like it makes those like, oh, we all go through the same things, even at that level. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
that, the honesty. But you talked about playing with that group with migration. As far as assembling the groups, that you work with, what's the there's obviously musical compatibility. Do we gel? I mean, that's something we really can't talk about. And there's also the personal connection. Like, do we get along personally? I mean, some musicians want to work with their friends, even though they may not think the same. Like how do you? What's the balance for you? I guess I'm asking. Is it like more important for the
I mean,
musical stuff to be there,
yeah,
or the
like you said,
friendship?
it has to be a balance.
Hmm.
There is a balance, absolutely. For me, I love playing with my friends, and my friends happen to be number one, good people, and number two, fantastic musicians. And I won't call a friend because they're my friend. I call them because they're right for the gig.
Hmm.
And but that's a beautiful combination when you can gel together a friend relationship with the right musical vibe as well. And also just, as I get older and I've been on the road more, I really enjoy playing and going on the road with people who are just ready to be normal. And, touring is hard, and it's rough as a band leader, it's rough as a side musician, it's tiring, it's rough on the body.
Do you
And,
mean
the music is not the thing that you get paid for. It's the
right?
traveling in between and being
Sure.
tired and hungry and jet lagged and blah, blah, blah.
When you
The
say
music,
ready to be normal, do you mean that when you're not working, you're able to just kind of relax and not just talk about music, go, be together, do fun things? Is that what you kind of mean by
no, I
being
mean, being normal, like, if you're having a grouchy day, we're all tired, we're all hungry,
Mhm.
try not to bring everybody else down with you. Try to be a team player, know that we're all roughing it out on the road. We're all in the same boat. And if we work together as a group in the same way that we're working musically, then it'll be much easier to travel and,
Have you
just
worked with anybody that you really admired them, almost like a fan, so to speak, like just like really put them on a pedestal, which is totally fine. But then like once you work with them, you got to know them personally and realize like, oh, you almost kind of look at their music a little bit different because you just, maybe you saw some things
because of a
about their
negative
person.
thing.
Yeah.
No, I have to say I've been really lucky. I mean,
You're lucky. Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I've been really lucky. Like I did a recording. I did a new album in December that I'm working on right now, the post-production, and it's an album of duos. And I have like idolized Bill Frisell forever,
Whoa.
and I know, I mean, I met him in passing, and he also was one of our artists for Live from Our Living Rooms during the pandemic. Bill Frisell actually broke the internet. He was one of the first musicians in jazz to break the internet. And so we had been friendly from afar for a while. And then I asked him if he wanted to do a duo with me. And he agreed, and we got in the studio. And it was just, I mean, I know that he's a wonderful guy, but you never know when, especially in a duo situation, it's just the two of you. You don't know how he's feeling or, but he was like the epitome of joy and love and comfort, and just made it such a safe space in my head, where I was so nervous to be recording with Bill Frisell.
Well, I've never met him before, but I've watched him in interviews, and he just seems like a very gentle soul. That's, unquestionably.
That's the perfect word. He's a gentle person, and it's beautiful, beautiful energy. So that was really amazing.
So that duo record, how many different varieties?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a wide range of instruments and of people. So there's Bill Frisell, there's John Patitucci,
Okay.
Nicole Zaritis, Adam Rogers, Joel Ross, Ben Wendell, Max ZT, and Antonio Sanchez.
Yeah, that's gonna be a great record.
Yeah, it's
when is
great.
that coming out?
And I decided, I'm not sure when it's coming out. I'm working on the post-production now. So I did duos. I didn't compose any music. I just arranged a bunch of tunes that I really love. And it's the first time that I've ever done a record of cover tunes, essentially. And I just, I realized that I think there was something about coming out of the pandemic. I went through a really rough, dry spell with my composing, and I wasn't able to really think up what the next thing was. I think that was also associated with the fact that my Grammy-nominated album Ona, which was nominated in the middle of the pandemic, it was kind of an album that I had worked so many years up to, and then the pandemic happened and time passed and the moment was over. And so I kind of felt like I never really got to seize the moment on that baby, which I had put so many years of work and effort into.
Well, that's actually a really good idea. I love that. You say that when you have a duo, it's probably you have a lot more freedom too to space it out and record. It's not you have to push and do everything close. You're more.
Yeah, I wanted that freedom.
Mhm.
And then I also wanted to also have the space because the tunes that we recorded in the album are all very different. It goes from Billy Joel to Bjork to the Beatles to
which Beatles tune? I have to ask. I'm sorry, unless you don't want to say.
Hey Jude.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Yeah.
That one is with Frisell. I'm very excited.
Oh.
And actually, Hey Jude is one of the tunes that Bill hadn't recorded yet. He told me in the studio, because he has a bunch of Beatles projects. He loves the Beatles, and everybody has always been asking him, when are you going to record Hey Jude? So I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm the first one.
No, that's so great. You're doing Billy Joel and the Beatles on a jazz record. I mean, I'm all for this.
And Bjork, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Stevie Wonder.
I'm all for this. I do like library programs, and I have one program called Jazzified Pop, where we just do pop tunes like jazz. So I'm all for it. But how some people can be or more traditional, and they're like, oh, you know what I'm talking about.
This was really just I wanted to play some tunes that I really love, and rearrange them in a way that would make them not the original, but stay true to the original, and record them with some musicians that I really idolize. And
that's so awesome. So it's in the post-production.
Yeah, so the post-production, the thing that's going to tie all of these different tunes together is going to be the vocal overdubbing. So it's not something that I would necessarily be able to do live with all the vocals. I'll be able to do the tunes, of course, but the production of the vocals will be the thread that brings them all together. And since it's this duo, very bare situation, I'll be able to layer a lot of different harmonies and things like that.
Have you thought about, once this record comes out, translating it to the bandstand, like in terms of
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
What would that entail?
I think and the beauty of it is that since I did it in a duo setting, I will be able to do it either in a duo. I could do it with a band. there will be many different ways to, ins and outs of it that I think that'll work for a live situation.
Yeah, that's so cool that you pick these tunes. We're when you talk about, these other, non-jazz, I guess you could say, things. When you were growing up, what was the music that almost that kind of was the springboard into getting you into jazz? Like, because maybe was it like, 'cause there's always that something that like, what bridges us to jazz from something before? Because it's not, people don't wake up and they're just like, oh, I'm going to play jazz. And usually something comes a little bit before.
Yeah, I mean, when I started singing, I went straight for the vocals. I Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Aretha was a big one,
Oh,
Janis Joplin, Etta James. Those were kind of soul R&B jazz of that time. But it wasn't until I was a freshman in college, and I was actually, before I moved to New York to go to the new school, I was a psychology major at Northeastern University in Boston.
oh, that's where my
And
wife went to
I
school.
did a year there, and I transferred to the new school after a year, but I finished my psych degree at the new school, just at the liberal arts college. And I did jazz at the same time.
So
Um,
you could be a jazz psychologist.
I mean, that's kind of that's kind of something I've always been very interested in. And actually, the project that I'm going to be doing after this duo project comes out, the one that's on the back burner and still being produced, is going to be about psychology and jazz and neurology, and basically how frequencies in music affect us on a physiological and psychological level.
You're talking to the right person, because I believe, like, I mean, I've had surgeries and stuff, and like for some, there's certain frequencies can heal us.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not just something that we know because we feel good after we listen to music. There are studies, not very many, but there have been studies that show things related to blood pressure, things related to hypertension, things related to, like you changing on a molecular level because these frequencies penetrate your body. And if you've ever seen what sound waves do in water, this is what is happening inside our body because we are made up mostly of water. And so it's fascinating to me how because there's also music and then there's sound.
Right.
There's been a lot of, study of music therapy. There's been a lot of study on sound therapy, but I'm trying to bridge the gap between the two and talk to neurologists and musicologists and people who know about the two things. And there are specific frequencies that are known to be associated with different parts of our body and that elicit certain responses in the brain. And so this is the psychology part of me that has never really quite left.
No,
And so
I should give you my friend's email. He's studying. He has a PhD in psychology, and he's been studying all this stuff for years. You'll be someone
oh,
to.
please.
Yeah.
I am in the research phase at the moment.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'll send you over his contact information.
thank
But
you.
that's the thing. I believe, at least, a big part of like pain management, like in the next 20 years, is going to be talk therapy to get, because of, the brain is plastic and we get locked. It just doesn't know what to do. But I think that, psychology and therapy is going to be a big part of healing pain patients.
Mhm.
But I also think a part of that, the next thing is going to be like the sound healing, like putting on headphones and allowing the sounds to go into your system, and then your body can, release, the tension. You just can breathe better, get more oxygen. I mean, this is just, I hope for that, at least, because I think it's
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
powerful.
And there's different ways to go about it too. I'm reading a lot about, what happens when you listen with headphones as opposed to when you listen to music in a live context. So there are frequencies that go into your brain when you're listening in headphones, but then there are frequencies that go into your body when you're listening in a live music situation and you're hearing it live and you're feeling vibrations. Like this is a real physiological thing that's happening and it is changing our brains as we are listening. And one thing that I thought a lot about during the pandemic is the live music aspect of things. There's no other human experience on the face of this earth that can replicate a live music experience. And the reason for that is it's a cycle of energy that just goes around and around. There are musicians on a stage who are exchanging energy in between them, which in turn is affecting an audience who are feeling energy in between the audience. And then their energy is then being cycled back to the musicians on the stage. And it's just this beautiful cycle of energy that happens. And we all know that the cycle can also be a little rough sometimes. You can feel when the energy of a concert is so high and where everybody got it, felt it. There was something special that happened in that room that will never be replicated in the same way, even if they play the same music in the same way tomorrow night in another place. It'll never be the same. And so, yeah.
It's a moment in time. It's a special moment. I kind of understand why people make live music a regular part of their week. Just to
exactly,
it's healthy.
It's like therapy.
Yeah, you get everything. Your dopamine and everything. You're easy to fall asleep and stuff. So I'm all for this stuff. Like I read This Is Your Brain on Music. So I'm all for this stuff. Like, and I hope this stuff will really be prevalent in society in the next 20 years. I hope that, at least.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So no, Thana, this has been so great. Thank you so much for taking the afternoon to talk with me a little bit. And we're all going to be looking out for your new album. And if there's anything you want to, social media, website, all that stuff, if you want to just, share that really quickly, we can add that.
Great. I mean, you can find me Thana_Alexa on Instagram. Same thing on Facebook, Thana Alexa Music, and ThanaAlexa.com. It works with Thana Alexa with one A in the middle or two A's. It'll go to the same place. And Thana with a TH. And then, yeah. And I hope that you'll follow along with these various projects that I have coming up. There's, the duo record. There's this other project called Resonance, which will be forthcoming. And also, like you said, the jazz festival in Croatia, which has become a big passion project for me. I'm half Croatian, and so it's important for me that I'm giving back to the music scene in Croatia, and I'm helping find a bunch of young musicians in the Balkan region and in Europe who I'm finding funding to bring to the festival to learn from visiting artists and people who are performing at the festival, and just create a really invigorating and creative community of artists who can learn from each other and inspire each other.
When's the festival? When is it?
The festival happens the last weekend of August.
Yeah, if you want to come back and do another conversation before the festival, just talk about the festival, you're
that'd be
more
great.
than welcome.
Thank you.